Potential is everywhere. It's in our schools, our neighborhoods, and our future workforce. But while potential is equally distributed, opportunity is not. Welcome to the Empower Potential podcast, brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters of the Bay Area. Every episode, we explore the stories, strategies, and science behind mentorship and how one consistent relationship can change a life and a community forever. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sheil, and you're listening to the Empower Potential podcast. Today, we have a very special guest joining us. So, meet Katie Fortunato. She is the co founder and EVP at Higher Innovations, based in the greater New York area. She's a future work expert with a mission to make hiring human again. A Boston University fine arts grad, she has an adventurous spirit. She even spent a semester at sea with a powerhouse experience at the Wall Street Journal and AOL. She is a champion for women in leadership and serves as the president of the Onward and Upward Charitable Foundation. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been really lucky to get to know the Big Futures family over the past year as a corporate partner. So it's exciting to see your growth and moving into the podcasts.
Yeah, so I know I kind of outlined, your professional path and things like that, but maybe you could walk us through just briefly, where you started and where you ended up and maybe some of the things that you've learned along the way.
Absolutely. So my career path is anything but linear. And I think that when I started as a young girl thinking, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, some answers are I want to be LeBron James. Some are I want to be an actress. And I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a performer. I wanted to be creative and artistic. And that had nothing to do with my first job. My first job was I was scooping ice cream in a deli at a little town next to mine and, learned really important skills like how to perfect the perfect scoop and how to make the most enjoyable sandwich so that every bite tastes the same. Um, those skills have served me in my life and now especially as a mother. And then that was kind of the launching pad. What I thought was great about my first job was it was a front row seat to sales, customer service, delivery, dealing with customer issues, complaints, all that comes with it. It was a great place to start, but I knew it wasn't my forever dream job. So, finished school and thought that school was going to be the thing that set me up for my career. To my disappointment, but also I'm very grateful to have had this discovery that I was not meant to be an actress my whole career. It's something that I do for fun. It's a passion of mine. So being in the arts is a side hustle for me, and I do it for fun. And it doesn't make me any money, but I do it. And that was an important lesson to learn. And going through the media kind of turn of ad tech and the importance of being able to, as a brand, like distribute your brand to the right audiences, I thought it was a really wonderful experience to grow up in that kind of advertising that completely transforms the industry. And that also helped start our companies here at Higher Innovations was, well, let's take what's happening in the ad tech world, let's apply it to the jobs world. It's very similar. And my experience, I'd say, at the Wall Street Journal just gave me a very well-rounded view of the world, I think, and to work with the best talent in your industry is such a gift that anytime there is an opportunity, and I feel like my father always told me this, like go and find the name brands that people recognize.
Mhm.
They are legacy brands for a reason, and learn everything you can. Learn how they operate, learn about their customer service strategies, and also like learn new skills. There's a lot of movement that can happen at a larger organization. So I'm really grateful for the path. I think the thing that makes everyone different is actually your superpower. And for
Mhm.
me, it's having that at my core, a creative spirit, but all of this different experience, it makes sense together.
Mm. Yeah, I kind of, it's really interesting how you were able to sort of grab different pieces from different parts of your experience as well. Because I think, customer service and sales, that just kind of, prepares you for like kind of your path forward. And then also just kind of getting more of an open worldview through some of your experiences in terms of things like the Wall Street Journal and things like that. I think that's really interesting. Um, and I think it actually kind of leads into our next question because I remember you said something, you proposed this question that was really provocative when we first met. Um, I think you had said, do you want your dream job or do you want to create your dream life? So, can you maybe break that down for our listeners and why is it important for young people today to make that sort of distinction early on?
Sure. So this was a profound lesson I wish I had learned in my ice cream scooping days. Because what I mean by that is you can chase that dream job your whole life and not make it, not be successful at it for circumstances outside of your ability to control.
Mhm.
I've listened to a lot of college graduation speeches about follow your dreams, follow your dreams. What I'm hearing differently is follow your dreams, not follow your dream job. So I think the lesson, if I could go back, is be more open-minded on where this journey is going to take me and approach everything with curiosity and what can I learn from this experience that's going to help propel me, and thinking more holistically about what you want out of life, not what you want from your job. And I think that reframe of perspective really helped me and helped me hit my stride in figuring out, well, I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
And I have multiple interests. Many people do. We're multifaceted, three-dimensional people.
Mhm.
Part of me is my love for learning. Part of me is my creative arm, which we discussed. Part of me is looking to the future to say, what are the problems that I think we need to be solving in this future that are going to make the world a better place? So,
Mhm.
what are the ways that I need to make ends meet so that I'm fulfilling that mission internally? Um, so do you want your dream job or do you want your dream life? Do you still want your lifestyle that you've imagined for yourself? You want to travel? Do you want to be able to read books? Do you want a family? Do you want a spouse? Whatever that means to you, paint that picture. There's so many fun ways to do it. There's Pinterest, which I always have loved.
Yeah.
There's mood boards, which is taking the classic, stack of magazines and cutting out pictures that inspire you. It's journaling, it's meditation, it's breath work, finding clarity. It's talking to other people and hearing about their experiences too. I think there's a lot you can learn through others and others' growth. And, I think that's also why it's so important that in these stages of your life to have a mentor.
Yeah, for sure. Love the tie back, but yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. I think even when I graduated college, it was all about, go after your dreams. And I think initially you always think, yeah, it's go after your dream job. But like you said, people are multifaceted. We all have different interests. I think, it's important to be able to build a life that is multifaceted, that also, includes your different interests. And I think the job kind of comes along with it. There's different ways in which, you can find fulfillment in your employment, and not have it be the dream job, but also still feel like you have your dream life, your fulfilled life. So that's a really interesting perspective. Um,
Shio, what did you want to be when you grew up?
that's an interesting question. For me, I wanted to be a football player when I grew up, and obviously that didn't happen. So I pivoted, and I think once I was in college, I wanted to go into sports marketing, which kind of led me down the path of marketing, which is what I do now. with Big Brothers Big Sisters. But yeah, I mean, originally it was football player, and then that narrowed it down to marketing. But I also have I'm multifaceted. I have different interests. I like to read and write. Like to work out, things like that. And I think my reading and writing skills actually played into like my skills in marketing as well. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, it was first football, which didn't happen, unfortunately. I didn't play in high school, but eventually kind of led down the path of marketing. Hmm.
Well, you're a great marketer and you learned on the fields how to follow the playbook.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this actually kind of leads into the next question as well. Um, so, at Talivity, there's data, and you see what employers want from your perspective. I think you mentioned while a lot of people, and a lot of people that I know, kind of expects the tech jobs to be the future of the industry. Um, there's a huge need for these hands-on skills. So let's say you were mentoring a high schooler today, who's maybe unsure about their college path. Um, are there any alternative paths, or what paths would you encourage them to look at?
Well, that's right. We look at this data every day at Higher Innovations, and you mentioned Tlivity. It's one of our operating brands that consults with employers on building their tech stack, talent tech stack, where they are finding the right talent to build their um, hire employees. So we consult on the technology pathways and the strategies to do that. Our other two companies are also in the human capital space where we are always looking to innovation, and that's what I run here is that forward looking of what does the next generation need to connect to opportunity. And we're working with some of the best companies in the world, DoorDash, Shake Shack, Pokemon. We're working with many, many hospitals and healthcare services. And the need that we see the most is exactly what you just said. There are a lot of trade hands-on roles. What I like to call what interesting part of the market I think there is what I like to call the essential roles.
Mhm.
And picture this, you're getting ready for your work, your school day. You might be walking, commuting your way to work. There is public transportation. You might be stopping at Dunkin' Donuts before you arrive at work, and you are exchanging um, with a barista what you would like for your drink order. And then you're maybe arriving at work and you've got your signal. Please make sure you are f filling out your health benefits form. And so when I say the essentials, I mean think about how you go about your day. Imagine not having these roles in your life of other people. And that's what I mean with essentials is like these are essential parts of working and everybody's lives, and everybody plays a role in that. So, what's happening with technology on the other end is AI has completely warped a lot of jobs. I think if I were a mentor to my mentee, I would say, be curious, be open-minded. It's going to change because it's changing faster than anyone can keep up with, AI that is. But as you are exploring opportunities, try to learn skills that can't be replaced. And what can't be replaced? Your barista who's putting the perfect touch of cinnamon on top of your foamed latte, or the bus driver who has to show up to work that day to get you to work. There's
Mhm.
dependencies on other people. And focus on those human-centric connections and jobs because those are going to be everlasting. Uh, there's an opportunity on the tech side. You could throw yourself into AI. I absolutely highly recommend that everybody do that. I think no matter what your role is,
Mhm.
that will be a critical skill. It'll be a critical skill in winning the job at the job interview. It will be a critical skill to show that you are proactive and self-motivated and self-learning and self-educating. And I can share as a leader of a business, The dirty little secret is all of these leaders are figuring it out too.
Hmm.
Nobody's an expert in this. We are all becoming it together with this generation. I think the next generation is, and particularly the Big Brother, Big Sister group, they are native to this digital environment with AI.
Hmm.
That is already an advantage. It is so much easier to be organically growing up with that industry than it is to adapt and learn a whole new way of working
Hmm.
at the peak or later part of your career. So those would be the essential skills that I would point any young person wanting to enter the job market. And a reminder that it might be the ice cream scooper
Yeah,
because you just need to start somewhere.
right. No, I love that perspective because I think, the essential skills, like one thing that I've heard at least, and I'm not sure if you've heard this, but especially in tech jobs, like it's great if you know the technology, it's great if you know how AI works, but it's almost that communication aspect, like how do you communicate findings? How do you present the information? Like, how do you explain the way a product works? And how do you explain the way that this technology, this data is affecting the way that you work? Like, how do you explain that? That's almost like another skill on top of it. And you almost can build that sort of skill. I mean, obviously, learning the technology first, but also learning just social skills. I think like the baseline of all of this, kind of going back to customer service and scooping ice cream at a deli, is like it's the customer service, but it's also the sales experience, and it is just that communication aspect, learning how to communicate, with others. And I think that's one great thing that mentorship in our program sort of does is like opening up our littles to be a little bit more social, feel more comfortable, feel more confident. I think that confidence piece kind of plays in even in the job market, even in interviews, even when kind of communicating about products and technology and things like that. I think that sales aspect, that communication aspect is really important, and I'm glad that you pointed that out.
It's so true. It's every job, even the ones that feel small, they're teaching you something. And the question is, are you paying attention to it? And the relationship you might have with your mentor is getting that feedback. Say, hey, I noticed this, or hey, this is hard for me. How do you think I should approach this issue? That's another wonderful extension of the learning opportunity, um, and your kind of education on the job and in the career. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think let's get a little bit more personal because we also want to get to know you as a person. So could you maybe tell me who some of your mentors were and maybe some of the things that they had taught you that really resonated with you?
Absolutely. Well, I will say this, if you have a mentor, you are considerably lucky. Most people don't have one. Most people don't know that they can have one. It takes it takes boldness, it takes vulnerability, and it takes that kind of submission and I want to learn from someone else, and it's smart. So, let me share a little piece of my talking to my brother-in-law this past Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
He said, I once had a mentor that told me I needed three kinds of mentors. One who was my age and smarter than me and doing everything better than me. The second was 20 years older than me. And the third was 40 years older than me. So, what I took away from that is, well, do I have these mentors in my life? What is this generational spread? And then looking at those people, what can I learn from each of them? And the one thing that is true is mentors have changed my whole life. I could talk about those mentors then, I could talk about them now. I think when one lesson I learned really early with a mentor is also somebody who I began working for.
Hmm.
And it started with one small task of saying, hey, how can I help you with something that I'm better at than you? And at the time, it was social media.
Yeah.
And it was right when LinkedIn was becoming a thing and emerging. And it was about,
Mhm.
hey, can you help me build social media, build my profile? I want to connect with people. Sure, I can do that because it's native to me. That mentor took me under their wing and said, you know, what you've done is make everything about my job easier. And that was one of the first lessons that I learned from a mentor, doing it without realizing that's what was going on. But I would tell anybody, no matter what your job is, the person who you have to pay attention to the most is that superior, is that mentor. How are you helping them? How are you making their lives easier? Um, so I think that was an important takeaway from that mentor. Now I have a mentor. He is probably not even aware that he's my mentor, but he's my mentor, Jan Neffen. He's always on CNBC and does like Schwab live streams. He has in his career, I'd say his superpower was doing what nobody else I've ever met can do, and that's looking ahead around the corner. And we'll go to lunch and I'll talk to him about, well, what was that time where you knew it was the right time to sell your company? And he said, well, I saw what was happening in the world around me. I just had to take a big bet that I was right. And in that, there are so many lessons. It's, what I'm hoping to learn from my mentor is teach me how to see around the corner. What he's also telling me is you have to be aware, you have to pay attention. What I think I'm working on from this mentor is that imposter syndrome. Like, do I
Mhm.
trust myself in
Mhm.
making this call, in making big bets, making big decisions? So he doesn't even know he's teaching me all these things. He's teaching me all these. And then I've had the mentors who are just help me get through my schoolwork, help me get to the next level. I don't want this B, I want an A, and I just want to know how do you do it? And that's where like you can ask a peer, say, "Hey, what is your what is your tactical plan that makes you so successful in getting that A? What do I need to do? What do I need to change about my?" So you can find a mentor without it being this big formal thing. The point is they might be sitting right next to you in the classroom. They also might be your uncle who is 40 years older than you, or it might be somebody you meet in one of your daily routines and exchanges with others. So just be aware they're easier to find than you think. I'd say if you're going to ask somebody to be a mentor, it's it's just an honest ask. It's, hey, I have never asked, and if it's your first time, I've never asked anybody this before, but I really admire so and so about you. And for me, my weakness is this. I'm wondering if you might spend a few minutes of your time. I'll buy you a coffee. And I'd love to learn about how you do X.
Mhm.
And start small. A coffee is no big thing. But then like every other relationship in your life, there is a funnel here. So you're getting to know you. And then do you agree? Are you on similar terms? Do you like each other? Can you see yourself meeting with this person? Can you see yourself giving to them as much as they're giving you and find those things? And
Mhm.
then the ask comes for a mentor. Maybe you've had lunch a few times or gotten coffee or gone on a walk. And that's when I think it gets easier to make those big asks, especially when you're young and you feel like older people don't have time for you. It
Mhm.
is true, they don't have time for you. However, the right people see that opportunity to take that time to help the next generation. And that's one of the things I'm very passionate about is if the older generations don't help the next generation succeed,
Mhm.
there is an impact for them. What if they're a business owner, their business is going to depend on the future workforce. So
Mhm.
if they are not finding and learning the ways to connect and engage that next generation, then that has an impact on them. But not only that, some people just want to give back because if not them, then who? And that's often the question that I've heard my mentors ask.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's actually interesting. I think that's one thing that we try to emphasize here is that our bigs, they're not only are obviously, being mentors, but they're really giving back to the next generation and providing, you know, everybody has some sort of knowledge. When you're older, when you've been through life, you have life experience. Um, so I think there's always something that, they can kind of provide in that relationship. But I also think it kind of goes both ways too, because our littles can also provide, some learning experience for our bigs as well. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting piece. You were kind of hinting at you can find mentors in many different places. And I think that also resonates with our program as well. Like our bigs are, they're not a monolith. They are have all different types of work experiences. They're different ages. They have different educational backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds. So I think you can really just you can find mentors who have different experiences, but they all have, something to give and something to kind of, provide to like a mentee. So that's an interesting piece. But one thing I wanted to go back to, because I think you kind of mentioned this, was um, the skill of almost, foreshadowing or just kind of spotting the next big thing before it happens. Um, how can a young professional really practice that? I mean, is there some sort of skill or some sort of way that they can employ that in their own life to kind of get them to employ that when they're, working their first job or things like that?
So the question is, how can the next generation see around the curve? Like, what are some
Yeah.
of the strategies to do that?
Hmm.
When it comes to your career, there are a number of things that they can do. And the first is, building the relationships around you. And you want to build those relationships now. And they can be with your teacher, they can be with a classmate's parent, they could be with anyone. Um, you don't want to wait until you need the job and you need the reference to start building that relationship. And once you have that network and you have that relationship, you're learning from your network and you're asking, "Hey, what are you seeing out in the world? What are people challenged by? What problems do you wish could be solved?" That's a great place to start is kind of your um, near and dearest, I guess, part of your network. And then there's the looking outside. So, what I mean by outside is looking economically, paying attention to trusted news sources. What are the headlines saying? And something my grandfather taught me was never go a day without reading the headline news of the Wall Street Journal because that tells you everything that you need to know about what's happened in the world. And it's something that I still do every day, and also then ended up working there, which was totally by coincidence.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Um, but by the muscle here to learn is that you have to be looking for clues every day. And especially if you're in that moment of I'm actively looking for a job, I'm actively trying to figure out what it is I'm going to do. Even if you, and one other place to look is even if you are not a investor in the public stock markets, you want to be looking at that information as well. And have you ever heard the phrase like follow the money?
Yes. Yes.
I can't think of a scenario where you wouldn't want to be looking for those clues because if you're looking at the macro signals of how people are spending their money, how they're spending their time, that gives you a really big clue as to where there's going to be opportunity. And there's going to be opportunity there because those businesses are thriving. Um, they're profiting, they're
Mhm.
growing. Those are signals that you can get from the public sector very easily. And even if you had like a few, like, oh, I'd love to work for Verizon or whatever the company is, follow their quarterly earnings reports and see what they are talking about. And likely in the public reports, they're going to be talking about employer sentiment, customer sentiment, revenue growth, opportunities for new products and innovation. And that's where you get your clues about, well, what skills are they talking about investing in? Oh, I'd
Mhm.
love to learn how to help with that AI thing. So there's clues like that. There's also clues in particular with the job market is looking at the demand. So where are employers spending money to attract people to apply to jobs? And that's very connected to our core business at Recruitix. They work with the top Fortune 500 companies and manage their media spend as an ad agency, but also have all this kind of software for figuring out how do we get our jobs into, meeting our jobs into the right people where they are. So do we need to be advertising on social media?
Mhm.
And are we targeting people on a job board or LinkedIn, or are we going directly to a trade or a school? So we have a report. I can send it to you if it's helpful, but it's a signal of showing what skills and industries are growing
Mhm.
and what kind of financial investment is fueling that chart. So one area we've seen, probably not to many people's surprise, but IT, for example, has been a declining skill. And why is that? Well, if we're looking at the news, if we're looking at the macro markets, it's AI, and AI is taking those jobs every day, and that's
Mhm.
reality.
Mhm.
The growth pattern on the alternative is healthcare. Healthcare is always at a steady incline. And why
Mhm.
is that? Well, look at the market. Healthcare is getting more expensive. There's a shortage. I'd say it's like 1/3 of the job market is nurses alone.
Yeah. Mhm.
Imagine a world where we don't have healthcare and first
Yeah.
responders but and employers are, you can see the how motivated they are because they're spending money in these places. So following the money to kind of make your own conclusions and clues is terrific. And then if you're someone who is, what do we call it? Doom scrolling the social media channels
Yeah.
and job boards, that's another clue. Like what else is out there? What are people looking to hire people for is a great signal.
Yeah, that's interesting. Almost kind of looking for obviously consumer spending habits, but also what the companies are investing in, what skills they're investing in, and kind of taking that as clues and sort of learning those skills. For young professionals, I think that's a great skill, something that I will use myself as well to kind of sort of understand the industry a little bit better, especially nonprofit. But yeah, very, very interesting skill. And I think we'd love to, be able to share that report as well. If you're able to share that with us, that'd be great. Um, but yeah, I think kind of going into some of the work that obviously you guys have done with our organization. Can you maybe just explain like how your work at Higher Innovations with Talivity, JobStream, et cetera, is connected with our work to empower the potential of youth?
Sure. So, in everything that we do at our companies, it's about connecting people to job opportunity and helping companies find those people. My personal mission at the company is to oversee innovation. So, what do I mean by innovation? I mean, what's the next technology? What is the next wave of job market discovery that we need to be building and thinking of? And we've had a track record of building, it's been in our DNA for about 35 years. The newer companies that have emerged are Recruitix with the ad tech shift. And what's happening now is, to nobody's surprise, is the shift in social media. And going back to the follow the money comment, what we've seen in commerce and spending and consumer has tremendously shifted towards an on social platform transaction, meaning people who are in the apps, in the Instagram, in the TikTok, in the Facebook, they're actually able to buy things.
Hmm.
And this completely changes everything. This is distribution and visibility. So if you're a brand and you're not in those channels, you're going to be losing out on this next generation. So going back to my mission is, how do we connect this next generation to opportunity? It's all about that. How do we become the household name so that the next generation's already thinking about, well, I know that I need to go to social media to find my next opportunity and next job.
Hmm.
So right now with JobStream, I mean, that's what I'm focused on building is a platform for creators to help with that distribution essentially. And some creators that are on it are calling it like the shop my of job content. And people are already talking about their work life, their careers, get ready for work with me. Things that I like to do on a Friday afternoon that my boss doesn't want me to. Like, there is so many viral moments around work-life culture. So there's a lot of like social acceptance, and people are already talking about it and not getting paid. So we are connecting those employers that I was talking about. They're paying to try to get their jobs and their brand in front of young people, and we're the connective tissue, the technology that is making all of that happen. So this directly impacts places like Big Futures because what I think about is if you are somebody in the program of Big Futures, you want to be asking your mentors and your program around you, how do we find the right jobs? How do we connect to the right opportunities where we're learning the right skills to land the job? There has to be a education that's current and modern and a practical way to going about a job search. There are the amount of stories that I hear from young people of, oh, I'm applying to thousands of jobs, and they don't
Mhm.
get the job, they don't get a call back, they don't even get an email, like an acknowledgement, nothing, which, to my standard is just poor etiquette. But it's also a product of a broken system where
Mhm.
technology has not kept up pace with human behavior and what people are actually doing. So we're all about making that easy. Make it easy to connect. Let's surface the real opportunities. Let's surface the real jobs. Let's surface the data like the ones I'm going to send you to see what is the truth here. Um, what I think is a problem I wish I don't think anybody has solved is going through the decision from a young person's place about college and saying,
Mhm.
is it worth it to go through the college application process and spend all this money, create all this debt that I might have for a lifetime? If I don't have a guarantee that I'm going to get a job after to make ends meet, to start paying that back, is that worth it? Is there value there? I think this is the question and the challenge of the next generation. So I would say for the Big Futures, kids and mentors as well, thinking about the alternative paths. Does
Mhm.
it have to be about going to college? Does it have to be about that's not the only path? And we see that. And there's a huge need for all the essentials that we were talking about and the skilled trades and the things that you would never trust a robot to do.
Mhm.
So, there's along the way, like lots of things to prepare yourself for multiple scenarios, right? There's not only one way to succeed, there's many, but there is, I think, the access that Big Futures students and mentors have is like there is a plethora of online skills training. There's in-person training. In my town, the library is a wonderful resource and it's free. And they give people the skills that are being discussed. So there's apprenticeship programs, there's internships, there are all these things. And I think something that's going to really surprise people is how resilient and how the next generation is just going to figure it out just as they always
Yeah.
have. And we're seeing, a lot of those younger people opt out of college, find their own success. They're becoming creators. They're part of creating this new economy. So we need to pay attention to that too.
Mhm.
If I were a parent, I would seriously be considering how I'm helping or a mentor. If I were a mentor or a parent, I would seriously be considering how we are looking at that next step because it's huge.
Yeah. Oh, that's great perspective. I think our Big Futures program especially tries to provide not only, college, obviously, like resources, but alternative resources for trade schools and things like that. And obviously great partnerships like we've made with you guys. I think, just kind of providing the tools and the resources because there are a lot out there. And I think, not to sound kind of old, but with the internet, nowadays you can go out and find pretty much anything and any resource that's out there. Um, you know, so I think, there are great resources, and I think our young people um, can be and will be more prepared, for the job market ahead. And, we'll be able to kind of learn those skills that are so necessary, moving forward. So I kind of want to wrap this podcast up by sort of going back to what the core message of our podcast is. And I like to ask this to all our guests, but um, is there a moment that you feel really signifies the meaning of empower potential to you? And what I mean by that is empowering the potential of youth. Has there been maybe a moment with our program, or any moment in general that you feel really signifies empowering potential of youth?
When I think about the Big Futures program, it's very clear to me that the Big Brother Big Sister organization is already ahead of the curve, and you're being proactive about it and looking for things like corporate partnerships and bringing in speakers and new perspectives. So just taking that step, you're already doing more than most people. And that's hugely incredible. What else I think is so uniquely special about what the Big Futures is all about is preserving the human stuff. And there is, that I've gotten to know in working with you all, such a focus on bringing people together physically. And I think that that is like because of mentorship, but you cannot learn this on Google. This being, you cannot learn how to read a room. You can't learn how to recover when you make a mistake. And I wouldn't trust any answer ChatGPT gives you about that. And you don't learn how to work through the emotion of going through a rejection, whether it's a relationship, a family matter, or a job, feeling rejected. Like you have somebody in your corner who's helping to keep you going. ChatGPT is useless. Don't do it. But these are skills that make you like help success in any job and in any relationship in in your life. So I think Big Futures is really doubling down on let's preserve what's human and realizing and talking about that these are the skills that you can only learn from watching and working with someone and talking to somebody who's been there.
Yeah.
So, I think about my role with technology, it's how do we use technology to make our lives easier so that we can get to those human connections more quickly and preserve what's really human. And what I mean by that is like, even just sending emails, if it used to take me 30 minutes, it now takes me 1 minute, and I can get to having the phone conversation or the meeting in person more quickly and spend more time there. So, I think that's one thing Big Futures is a visionary on without maybe it's intentional or maybe it's not, but the preserving the human connection, I think, is where Empower Potential comes to life. And that's a great lesson for anyone. So,
Yeah. Well, that's a very powerful way to sort of sum up the episode. Well, Katie, it's been a pleasure to have you on. I think that's all the time we have, but thank you so much for sharing your perspective. Before we kind of end off, is there anything else that you'd like to say, um, in general, or just about the partnership between our two organizations?
I think it's up to this next generation to step up to and rise to this challenge of how do we keep continuing to unlock the human potential and not get lost in these other world digital media spaces and be aware. Um, I think the relationships in your life have give you the power to change everything. And maintain learning how to maintain that connection and preserve that is a skill, but it's going to take that skill is going to take you through your entire life. Um, so
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thanks so much for being on the Empower Potential podcast. It's been a pleasure.
It's been so fun to chat, Sheil. I'm looking forward to all of the work we're doing. I think one final thought, and as I think about my mentors too, is like if somebody believed in you enough to connect you with a mentor and give you that opportunity, that is gold. And I feel like the best thing that could happen is believing it in yourself too, and knowing that, this is an opportunity to win, to succeed, to learn and grow. So
That's a great way to sum it all up. Love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much to Katie for being on our podcast, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Empower Potential podcast. If you found yourself nodding along today, either agreeing with something that you heard or simply enjoyed hearing from our community, we invite you to join us in our mission to connect Bay Area youth with caring, consistent mentors. We have youth right here in the Bay Area waiting for that person. Head over to bayareabigs.org to learn more. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you tune in for our next episode coming soon.